Well, I'll be damned, folks. It's Sunday night, and I'm going to be going live momentarily with my favorite person that I get to do as much MMT shtick with and get to talk as much shop with and get to talk about the progressive movement with. None other than the guy who gave me so much knowledge, so much opportunity to really learn, Ellis Winningham. Folks, give it up for Ellis Winningham. Welcome back, sir.
You're not Stephen Hale. What was it?
No.
What? You can't fool me. Hello, Stephen.
I've got a little bit more hair on the top.
I'm shorter by the day, but I'm still taller than Robert Reich, if that's what you're wondering about. I would think so. Yeah. Well, it's all opinion, right? Uh-oh, looks like Steve.
No, we're good. We're good.
There you go.
So, bottom line, how have last night we had a opportunity to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who has come out run as a Democratic Socialist. She was proudly supported by the Democratic Socialists of America. Folks from the Modern Money Network were behind her. Pavlina helped her. You have Stephanie in her ear. You've got the Justice Democrats and TYT actually propping up some MMT. And the question I have for you, Ellis, is what will it take for our movement, this group of people that have been slugging through life, begging for these things, begging to have a better life? What will it take for them to embrace and press forward and be able to defend a truly progressive platform? What do they need to know about economics here to even get in the game? Because still the very first thing these sons of bitches did, the very first thing was say, how are you going to pay for it? The typical neoliberal, poop game, right? I mean, they just took a dump on our lives by asking that question. It's economic terrorism, correct?
Yeah, that's what it is. In the modern day, it's economic terrorism. Yeah.
What are we going to do as far as, as a nation? Obviously there's some key issues out there, some political rules, if you will, with this pay-go crap that Nancy Pelosi pushes forward. And the pay-go stuff goes back to the Obama era. I mean, we're talking about a situation where they've tried their best to put as many little curbs and stops in to make our nation operate at a crawl, to keep the people starving, to keep them whimpering, to keep them begging. And yet the people themselves don't know enough to ask for more. They don't know enough to kick the tires and get the car rolling. What can we do to get that ball rolling, Ellis?
Well, first of all, you're going to have to get rid of the mainstream economic narrative. I talked about this on Facebook yesterday after your live stream. Your very angry live stream yesterday.
Indeed.
Yeah. I talked about this briefly to detractors. And the thing is that for many, many, many years, the people have been lied to. And they're told that government, the national government's finances are just like a household. All right. And that it must have an income. So it taxes or borrows to fund its spending. And that's a bunch of neoliberal hogwash. Okay? It's BS, a lot of it. It's not true at all. And we need to get past this notion that the rich, that workers, that the middle class are paying the government's bills. It's nonsense. Taxpayers do not fund the national government. The national government funds taxpayers. This applies in the US, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. Yeah, okay. And another thing that really irritates the shit out of me when it comes to progressives that aren't even aligned with MMT. I mean, they totally disagree with MMT. How that is, it's like disagreeing with reality, but whatever. The point being is that everyone treats conservatives as though they own the government spending issue. Like, you have to go to them and present your plan to spend, and they have to approve it. You know what I mean by that, Stephen? It's the question, how are you going to pay for it? Okay?
Absolutely.
Progressives come to the conservatives. Could be Republicans here in the US, could be the Tories over in the UK. They come to them and they say, well, we want universal health care, we want a job guarantee, we want free education, and the Republicans, how are you going to pay for that? Tories, don't you see, we're broke, how are you going to pay for that? But when it comes to expanding the military's budget, or buying an F-35 that may cost more than, say, the Australian economy is worth in its full development, all right, do the Republicans, do the Tories ever come to you? Do conservatives ever come to you and say, we're going to pay $1.5 trillion for this new fighter jet, and here's how we're going to pay for it? Do they ever say, hey, well, we're going to get some tax cuts for the rich, about $1 trillion, and here's how we're going to pay for it? Hell no. And progressives just sort of sit there and they get angry. They say, well, you know, the rich don't need tax cuts, and they don't. We don't need to expand the military any further, and we don't. But you never hear progressives say, but Mr. Conservative, how are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for that? No one ever questions the conservatives. But the moment progressives suggest policy options, they feel they have to explain themselves. Okay? So here's my suggestion to start off with. You don't have to explain shit. You don't have to tell conservatives how you're going to pay for a damn thing. Okay? Because they already know how it's paid for. And when I talk about conservatives, I'm talking about politicians. I'm not talking about, you know, the everyday conservative. I'm talking about politicians in Washington, politicians in Parliament. They know already. All right? You don't have to explain yourself to them. Tell them, none of your damn business. I'll fund it the way you fund military expansion, okay? End of story, all right? And the thing is this. You don't have to explain yourself to the people either. Do not explain yourself to the taxpayer. You don't say, well, how are we going to pay for it? Here's how we're going to pay for it. No, screw that, okay? Because it's not their money paying for it. We need to understand this as progressives, okay? It's not the taxpayers' money that's paying for this. So all you need to tell the people is you're getting a job guarantee, you're getting free health care, free dental, free vision. You're going to get student debt relief, okay? You're going to get infrastructure modernization. You're going to get lower crime rates, and you're going to get low racial tensions and a lot of prosperity at no cost to you, the taxpayer. And believe me, once they get it, they're not going to want to give it up, all right? And once they get it, you know what the conservatives are going to do? They're going to wet the pants, because that's the one thing they're terrified of, an actual progressive agenda being achieved. And when it is, the people will not want to give up full employment. They will not want to give up universal health care. And conservatives know it. And that's what scares the shit out of them. It's what makes them wet the beds in the middle of the night. It's why Paul Ryan can't get up it without his depends, because he's afraid some socialist in New York is going to come after him and tell the world, you're full of shit, man. The U.S. government can't go broke. It's where the money comes from. Government spending is money creation. End of story. We need to get this down pat and understand it.
Here's my concern, right? Because, you know, I come from a recovery background, and I know that there's no point in pointing across the street at the other people. My job as somebody in recovery is to always look at my side of the street, because my side of the street is where I have some control. My side of the street is where I have the ability to actually make change. So when I look at our progressive movement and I look at our alternative media people, like, wow, I could list them all, and I probably should, just so people know to look out for it so they can heckle them. But we got guys like Nico House that are constantly waxing on about the petrodollar. We've got Jimmy Dore talking about the petrodollar. We got Lee Camp talking about the Rothschilds and the banksters. We've got all these individuals all over that should be representing how to get a new deal for the people so people stop suffering. But they're too busy waxing poetic for likes and clicks about these things that are really non-issues. They may be an issue, but they're 5 issues down and they're not even the right issue. They didn't even phrase it the right way. They didn't even put it in the right bucket. They didn't even think, and they won't listen to truth. So therefore, their listeners, which outnumber us, unfortunately, sit there and hear the worst garbage, nonsensical BS, non-economic truth that you have ever heard, worse than the right wing. Remember, our side of the street. If I focus on the right wing, okay, then I miss the opportunity to actually change something. If I look in progressive world, the people that claim to be progressives, and I see this bullshit narrative that they refuse to relent with, they refuse to do better, they refuse to tell the truth, I feel it is my responsibility to call it out, because when people go sitting there listening to them, because they're good people and they want these things supposedly, but they would rather be in the in crowd with the cool kids that call MMT a cult and stuff like that, than actually be useful, keyword useful, to the people so that we can win. Because if they got on their pulpit and they said, hey guys, bullshit, we know you can afford to do these things, now do it, all these people would line up, the huge numbers. We would have enough numbers to really, really, really make a difference. They won't do it. And that makes me bitter inside, because I don't want to talk about the GOP. I don't want to talk about them. They're going to be my enemy. They're going to fight against me because of the socialist word, whatever. Why are our own people unwilling to do the right thing? Why are they pushing forward such shameful non-truths? I don't get it. Help me understand this, sir.
Some people want revenge against the rich, and they will not rest until they get revenge. And I dealt with that last night. I simply explained, look, what do you care if your tax dollars are actually being spent? Okay, so what do you care if the government spends the richest tax dollar? Okay, or what do you care if it destroys it? Your ultimate goal is to punish the rich, to reduce their wealth, right? In terms of US dollars or British pound or Australian dollars. So what do you care? As long as it's destroyed, right? But the thing is that I came to the conclusion many years ago that I think many progressives like the struggle more than the solution, because it gives their life meaning to complain. And I'm not being rude or brutal or smug when I say that. It's just that if we came along and we provided a job guarantee, universal health, and free college tuition, we got rid of student loan debt, and we filled stomachs, and there was sustained prosperity and perpetuity, crime rates would drop, racial tensions would drop, social problems would start to dissipate and then be eliminated. What would they have left to complain about? There's nothing left to do. And I think for the most part, many progressives are into politics because they want to feel like they're doing something by protesting or complaining. They don't want to actually resolve the issues. And when you tell them, look, there's a way to do it, they immediately, when you explain how things actually work, how federal spending works, how national government spending works, they instantly, the switch flips on and they knee-jerk, and they don't want to hear it because it negates their deeply held religious beliefs. You understand what I mean by that? It literally bothers them to hear that prosperity is possible right away. They don't like that, and I can't. You have to be a very strange person not to want to help people. You have to be a very, very, very strange person, okay, to see a man bleeding on the street and say, well, we need to find the man who stabbed you before we can treat the bleeding. I mean, this is insane, right? But that's the way they behave. They literally behave like this. We all can't have healthy, straight, perfect teeth until we pull the teeth of the rich. You know how stupid that sounds? And they would go, yeah, that's stupid. But when it comes to money, federal spending, all of a sudden, it's not stupid. It's a wonderful thing to know that not only can households go broke, not only can corporations and businesses go broke, but the government can also go broke. Everyone can go broke, meaning that money is some kind of commodity that you dig out of the earth, or pan out of rivers and streams, and then the whole world is in debt. Oh my God! So like Pluto's going to call in the debt, and that's why NASA went to Pluto to drop off an interest payment before it called in the debt. I mean, come on, get real. All right? Money is not a finite commodity. It's just a social tool that's created by national governments. It's called a state currency. These governments do not need revenue from the people in order to spend. They give the people money to spend. Government deficit is the private sector's income. Let's get real, all right? We need to stop listening to this tap.
Ellis, I look back and I say, the bailouts of all the banks, the bailouts of the different industries, and I say to myself, there is a sign of worthlessness that permeates the movement, because they sit there and they focus on the banksters, but yet at the same time, it was Congress that had to bail them out. Mm-hmm. I find that to be an abomination that people don't tie that together. I find it to be an abomination that these highly sought after alternative media folks sit there and still wax poetic about the Rothschilds and things like that. I find it highly suspicious that we as a movement can't get past these ridiculous, it's like knuckle dragging, mentally deficient stories that they tell by the fire pit. And, we're seeing now quite honestly, we're seeing a resurgence with this Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, mind you, I'm going to say this so that nobody confuses me. I've seen indications that she's trying to appease her establishment friends, and that's not without merit, because she's still got to do business with them. And she's got to be able to curry favor, and she's got to be able to make her noise. And I'm sure she's being advised by MMTers, because I happen to know she's being advised by MMTers. But notwithstanding, I can certainly understand why people are skeptical of any politician whatsoever, because a politician's job is, in fact, to get elected. And the vast majority of Americans, unfortunately today, actually believe the government shouldn't be able to spend beyond whatever means they think it should have. They think they should raise taxes in order to cover it so that they're fiscally responsible. And so this is what politicians will go out there and say, because their job is to get elected. So if they come out there and they say all these different things and the people believe it, then guess what? They were successful in doing what their job is, which is to get elected. Our job as citizens, as activists, as people who give a crap and are in the know, is to change the narrative so that they have air cover to do and say the right thing, so we can force them. They're public servants. They're not Jesus Christ. They are public servants. Actually, that's not even the right way, because there's an opportunity to point out that JC was the ultimate public servant. But the flip side to this is that these individuals refuse to treat politicians as servants. They treat them as gods. And when they speak as if this is the only way. It's like the way, the truth, and the life, said by Bernie Sanders or said by Jill Stein or said by whoever. And if you listen to them, all of them to a fault say, well, we got to reduce the deficit. We got to increase taxes. We got to pay for spending. We got to do this. We got to do that. What do you think it will take for people to understand that in order to get them to change, we've got to change, and we've got to change the narrative so that there's sitcoms that are saying things differently, so that the books and TV and the newspapers are saying things differently, and the new narrative in the colleges is different. So there's a lot of places that the narrative has to change in order to be truly effective. The people out there just fall right back into zombie land otherwise. And I don't know how to bridge that gap. And that's got me nuts, because it really does come down to, here's the red pill, here's the blue pill. Do you want to know the truth, or do you want to go back to sleep? This is the key. This is like the one-stop shop key. Xenophobia. So much of that is brought on by fake austerity, false scarcity of resources that have been brought on by piss poor fake economics that literally treats us like we're just chattel slaves, basically. And here we are in a situation where if we change that narrative, we break the chains literally. And xenophobia goes away because you're not worried about the immigrants taking your job. You're now worried about, do they have food and water? Are they okay? Are they escaping harsh conditions? Can we help them? But instead, right now, it's like they're the enemy. Everything's the enemy. You're going to take my little teeny pile of nothing because we're pitted against each other because that's what neoliberalism does. How do we fix that?
You're talking about the politically acceptable thing.
Yes.
Where people have to say things that are politically acceptable. And so MMT is not as yet politically acceptable. And the reason why it's not is because it still has just a bit further to go before we reach the point of critical mass. And when we do, the momentum will pick up, and then it will become politically acceptable to tell the truth. In the meantime, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, okay? And in the meantime, you're going to see good people that are trying to appease certain bases, all right? But what we're doing, okay, and what we've been doing for years and years, is we've gone past the orthodox the economists. They're not economists, they're crackpots, okay? They're piss artists is what they are. And we've gone past them, we've gone over the head, and we've taken the case to the people, okay? And this has been going on for many, many years now, especially since the GFC. And look at us today, okay? We're on the tip of everybody's tongue for the most part. You've got the orthodoxy coming out, swinging at us, trying to punch us in the face and missing by a mile, making themselves look like idiots, saying the dumbest things that you can possibly imagine, okay? They're just a bunch of religious nitwits. That's what orthodox economics is, religious nitwitticism, okay? Which reminds me of that guy, of your little live stream last night, your angry live stream, some guy was in there screaming about how economics is pseudoscience, okay? Well, I have something to say about that. He's right. Mainstream economics, orthodox economics, new Keynesian theory, okay, neoclassical, it is pseudoscience, you're right. Except the thing was that Steve was talking about currency analysis, not economics, okay? And currency analysis is not pseudoscience. So, sorry, no points for that guy this round. Okay? This is the thing that we need people to understand, and we're helping people each day. Each day, more and more people are starting to wake up to realize the truth that money's not a commodity. It's something that's created by governments. It's a social tool. And they need to understand that where we're approaching the beginning of economics, of macroeconomics from now, is from a currency analysis perspective. We begin by analyzing what money is, and then we follow it from its introduction into the economy, flowing through the economy, and its exit from the economy. Okay, we study all these things, all right? We observe the behavior, all right? And then we build a macroeconomics framework around that. So that's what MMT is, in case you happen to have seen that, people have seen that little clip that you put together of me talking about what is MMT. MMT is a framework, okay? It tells us how currency works, okay? And then it gives us a framework to design appropriate macroeconomic policy, okay? For the first time in history. We're not pretending that every human being is a rational fucking agent that can see with perfection into the future. Okay, and because we have feelings about inflation, it becomes true. So if Stephen Grumbine and myself and everybody watching and everybody in the country feels as though accelerating inflation should happen, or perhaps we should become Zimbabwe, if we feel that way, our feelings will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And guess what? Zimbabwe. Okay, Zimbabwe. And so our feelings, and this is what's called inflation expectation. People like Simon Wren-Lewis, Paul Krugman, take this shit seriously. Okay, they also, like Paul Krugman, takes this shit seriously about a finite amount of savings. Savings is very finite, and banks are lending out reserves. You see, they're intermediaries, and they bring together savers and investors. And when the government deficit spends, it messes with interest rates, and it messes with the finance, everything. It crowds out private investment, and these are all fucking excuses designed by the 1% to screw you out of your fucking birthright and turn you into slaves. You understand that? It's not about the money. It's about the real resources, and the rich have them. They control vast resources. And that's what this is all about. There is enough money to take care of everybody in first world nations, in Canada, UK, US, Australia, Japan, New Zealand. There are enough real resources to tap so that we can spend enough money into the economy to ensure that poverty is wiped away for all time. Gone. Okay? They want you to believe it's about the money and it's being finite so that you'll accept your pathetic position. You get mad and bang your fist and say, we're not going to take it anymore. Fuck the rich up the ass, man. And guess what? You're never able to tax the rich. You have been holding on to this outdated, ridiculous, sad, mainstream dogma of a broke U.S. government that needs your money to fund itself. Okay? And I want to know, when in the last 40 years have you achieved your progressive agenda adhering to these rules? When was the last time you taxed the rich at 80% and made it stick? Not in your lifetime. It's never going to happen. But what you can do is make the rich irrelevant. You can step right over the pieces of shit, seize control of Congress, spend, or Parliament, spend for the public purpose in full employment, then turn around and say, about that bank account of yours, mate. And that's it. You make them instantly not so wealthy after you solve the problem. But you're not doing it to pay for these things. You're doing it for justice, for equity, for the 40 years that they've stolen your national income. You destroy their savings. That's it. So that's what we need. We need to get this stuff through our heads. You know, it's going to take some time, but people are learning, Stephen. You know this. They're understanding it.
I would like to believe they are, but like, for example, we've got a discussion in the thread about inflation, right? And this is not just right wingers. This isn't just the Sig Heils. This is progressives that didn't do their homework when they were younger, that now here we are with our backs against the wall, ready to try and push a progressive agenda, are taking the right wing talking points and parroting it as if it's purely a fine progressive stance to hold when it has no macroeconomic reality to it whatsoever. Talk exact in very precise terms what inflation is, the types of inflation, and why we're nowhere near it. And that maybe progressives of all stripes and colors will feel a little bit of shame for talking about it in the future in any other way than a dispelling, debunking way of doing it. Because I think we've done this probably 100 times. Let's just get real precise. Tell me about inflation. Tell me why it's a nothing burger. And tell us the specifics so that people actually understand. I want to cut this up, and I want to be able to say every time somebody throws it up, bam, there's that clip, dude. There's that clip, ma'am. There's that clip, homie. Don't say it again. We're tired of it. We want to live. We're tired of you sticking on this thing. Go for it, brother. Bring it.
The definition of inflation is a continuous rise in a price level. Okay, over the period of time that price level rise is observed. In other words, inflation is not when bread goes from $3 to $4. That's not inflation. It's not inflation when gasoline goes from $5 to $7 or 5 pounds to 20 pounds. You know what? Just one thing. It's in the entire level, the price level of all goods and services rises, and it continuously does so over a period of time. You're observing it. All right. And there's several different types. There's stable inflation, there's accelerating inflation, there's hyperinflation, okay? There's deflation, there's cost push, and there's demand pull. And what these people are talking about is demand pull. In other words, it's a spending issue. A spending issue. Got it? Inflation from deficit spending by the national government cannot and will not occur prior to maximum macroeconomic efficiency, which is full employment or the real ability of the economy to produce goods and services. I said that slow enough, didn't I, Stephen? So that no one would miss that. Let me try that again.
No,
you will not get demand pull inflation from federal spending unless it persistently, continuously, okay, exceeds the real ability of the domestic economy to produce goods and services. That means that when you are at maximum production and not a single more good or service can be produced because you don't have the labor and you've efficiency it as best you can, you have to stop. But prior to a point of actual full employment, prior to the point of maximum output, you're not going to get demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation is an accelerating inflation. That means like this month, the inflation rate is 4%, next month it's 5%, the next month it's 6%, the next month it's 7%, and it keeps going. Okay? It's just that people, the way the mainstream has set this game up is for people to be terrified of inflation. Okay? They want people to live in terror and fear of it, but not fear the actual effects of long-term unemployment. Should I list those effects?
Well, before we go there, I want to address something here real quick because Tino Berrigan brought up a great point, and it's not a great point in terms of it's going to be something that is real. It's more about the fact that what he brings up is something that's brought up a lot, and he's asked the question: are there programs out there that would be more inflationary than others? And just from the tip of the iceberg, knowing like the difference between like a UBI and a federal job guarantee, understanding that it's really production, it's really access to resources and the ability to consume those resources and the ability for the economy to actually consume those resources, is really the key here. So when you have a UBI, for example, the UBI is going to be inflationary because there's no output. There is no production. There's nothing. It's just more money flooding in, chasing the same services that were there. And what happens a lot of times is like, for example, if we did Medicare for all, we don't have enough doctors out there yet. We don't have enough gurneys. We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough hospitals. College, we don't have enough teachers. We don't have enough, the various apparatuses that we need for people to be able to get there. We don't have enough buses to get people back and forth to school, whatever. So the issue is not about whether or not the program is. It's really about, are you driving up the need for resources without the ability to produce resources? At least that's the way I understand it. Keep me honest, Ellis.
The thing that we have to understand is that the macroeconomy, the important thing is the real resources. These are, things like land, water, iron ore, steel, factories, all this stuff. And human resource like labor. Okay, money is not a real resource. All right. So let's take, for instance, an example like we want to have universal health care. Okay, but we've got a majority of our labor force and a majority of our real resources that we need for medicine. Okay, going to a bunch of other things. All right. We wouldn't have the real resources necessary to have universal health care and guarantee health care. So what we would have to do is go in and increase taxes on other activities so that the government could redistribute those resources, not so they could have an income, okay, or pay for anything. So when you reach the point where the entire economy is producing goods and services at its maximum potential, if you persistently add more and more and more money into the economy, meaning you keep persistently increasing the net money supply, what will end up happening is spending will outstrip the domestic economy's ability to produce enough goods to sell those goods. And so the price level will have to start to rise because there's a shortage of output. Okay, so then you start seeing inflationary pressures rising. All right. As far as the UBI is concerned, all a UBI, all a basic income scheme is an aggregate demand tool. It increases aggregate demand. All right. How much, though, depends on how big it is. So if we're talking about something that's only $500 a month, you're not talking about anything that's going to be cause major inflationary crisis. But if you're talking about a living wage UBI, it's a drastic error because you'll be paying people not to work. All right. And you'll reduce the supply of labor. And in the end, you'll reduce the amount of goods and services being produced. And so this will erode the value of the UBI when the price level starts to rise because you've reached an inflation barrier. Okay, you've lowered that inflation barrier. So now the spending is pushing against that new lowered output limit. And the only thing that you can do is two things. You can either increase the UBI, which will make it even more inflationary, or you bring a halt to it, in which case it's no longer a guaranteed income of any. You defeat the entire purpose if you don't raise it up because it's not meeting the living wage standard. Okay, and yeah, Keith, Keithy, the robots are coming. They are coming. And my answer to that is the one that I provided last year to you, Stephen. It was a meme with Darth Vader and Captain Kirk. Kirk, look at all of this automation, yet we are still working. Yeah, that one? Yeah. Yeah, I'm on board the Enterprise. You're talking about one hell of an automated machine there. Okay, you can just say, give me coffee, and it materializes in this little cupboard. All right, out of nowhere. But aren't they still working? Of course they are. Human labor will continue. What will happen is the robots, they will come. And they will start, as Steve used to say, tying the ties in the Tootsie Pops. Or whatnot. Yeah. They'll sit there and twist the ties, you know. They'll sit there and create the little Jolly Ranchers. They'll sit there and fill the bottles of Coke, and they'll do all this stuff, and that will free up humans to do something else, which is what's happened time and time and time and time and time again throughout history. There will never come a time when humans just say, well, there's nothing left for us to do. Might as well sit on our ass and wait to die. This is not going to happen. And it is ridiculous, BS, nonsensical, nonsense, bullshit, fuckle. It is ridiculous to base a macroeconomic strategy around such nonsense, to think that human beings in 2018 are soon to become extinct because there's no use for them. The robots have come. It'll be like Terminator, okay? It'll be like Terminator, all the robots, and we're being exterminated. We're being used for batteries. Yeah, it's the Matrix. We're going to plug in.
I'm so glad you brought this. Ellis, these fuckwits that are running right now, like Cory Booker, okay?
Don't talk to me about him.
Liberal ambulance kind of Congress critter, okay? Yeah. And then you've got Ro Khanna, who has shown moments where he tries to look progressive and then other moments where he looks like a complete and utter bootlicking neoliberal. And I haven't figured out who he is, but I figure, you show me who you are long enough, eventually I'll believe you. The thing is that they're taking pieces, as usual, just like the ACA. They're taking pieces of job guarantee and they're saying, we'll try it. We'll test it in a couple places. Realizing the point of a job guarantee isn't about jobs. It's about the macroeconomic stabilizer. Just like food stamps are not about food, they're really about a automatic stabilizer. Each of these things, while they have a social humane component to them, are really not about the visceral, this version of things. Oh God, isn't it great? We're giving people food. Reality is it's meant to keep the economy from tanking. And in the case of a job guarantee, it's not there just to provide some jobs. The idea is to prevent the economy from bottoming out and labor bearing the weight of it. And being able to have a buffer stock of employed people versus people that have long since become destitute, gotten fat, let their hair grow crazy, and are not taking care of themselves anymore because they've given up on life. And the idea is to keep them in the game so that they can stay happy, whole, and in part of the American dream instead of allowing capitalists to destroy their lives. I mean, these guys, these Cory Bookers and stuff, are coming up with these neoliberal versions of a job guarantee that have nothing to do with a job guarantee. They've completely missed the point of a job guarantee. And this is the next phase of Schadenfreude that we're going to have to deal with the quote unquote neoliberals. And people are going to go, well, Cory Booker came out with a job guarantee. Of course I like Cory Booker.
It's not a job guarantee. It's not a job guarantee.
Go for it.
If a job guarantee, if some kind of proposal comes out with the name job guarantee on it, and it cannot hire every single person who wants to work and is willing and able to work, okay. If it cannot hire every single person who is willing and able to work and do so in perpetuity, that means today, tomorrow, next week, next year, 50 years from now, it's not a job guarantee. We don't hire some. We provide a guaranteed job to all who apply. I don't care if it's 30 million people. I don't care if it's 50 million people. I don't care if it's 5 people. All right? The truth of the matter is, what Stephen was talking about with automatic stabilizers, when you're talking about food stamps, all right, what that is it's designed, yes, to help poor people, all right, buy food. But the thing about it is its macroeconomic purpose is not humane. It's not designed to be, its purpose is to create a floor in spending, consumer spending, so that when the economy takes a nosedive or goes into a little downturn, consumer spending on food continues, okay, so that there's some buffer there, all right? That's the whole point, macroeconomically speaking. The idea is to create a price floor or spending floor, okay, in the economy. So when a recession comes, more people lose their jobs. So they go and they apply for food stamps, and guess what? They get approved, and then they begin spending on food. If you have more people on food stamps that are unemployed and need help, they're spending. They're still spending, which means that some poor guy at Walmart can keep his job because consumers are still buying food. Okay? That's the whole idea. Job guarantee is another automatic stabilizer, except it's superior. It anchors the currency to labor, to people, to workers. Okay? And when the economy heads south, it creates a pool that absorbs those workers so they never face unemployment. And when the economy does well, those workers can leave that pool and go to higher paying private sector work. Okay? It protects the economy. But yes, it does provide jobs for people and it protects them. Yes, it does. But the macroeconomic point of the job guarantee is to create a superior automatic stabilizer that actually modifies the economy. It functionally alters the economy to make it work properly so that human beings, workers, do not bear the brunt of economic downturns. It's real simple to understand, okay? Spending will be regulated automatically by you, the people. As the economy heads south, more people will flood into the job guarantee. That means more workers are there, and so the government has to pay them. Guess what that means? Deficit rises automatically.
I want to say that, we didn't have a rollout of Social Security, did we? We didn't phase it in. We didn't let New Yorkers get Social Security and test drive it in maybe Miami and maybe a nice little pod over here in Wisconsin. We did Social fucking Security.
I know what you're saying. I know where you're going with this. And Cory Booker can, I don't know, I wish he would just sort of cover his head, lift the collar up and button his shirt over the top of his head and put the tie up here and just walk around headless. Because he makes me sick to look at. He's a neoliberal piece of shit. All right? You can't test phase the job guarantee. You can't create a job guarantee, okay, and have it in Miami. All right? And that's it. We're going to do it for a year, and we're going to see if it works. And if it does, then we're going to expand it maybe. And we'll have a congressional review at the end of the... That's not how it works. It has to be all 50 states, all the way across the board, including Puerto Rico, you piece of shit president. Okay? That's what I'm telling you. It has to go 100% across the board. It begins immediately. You don't phase in. Over the next 60 years, we'll phase in the job guarantee, hopefully to all 50 states. Bullshit. No, you won't. That's not a job guarantee. That's a bunch of nonsense is what that is. It's an excuse to keep on doing the same bullshit and prevent full employment so that the business leader can keep using unemployment lines as a fucking whip and cracking it over the worker's back. That's it. Okay? And on top of that, as long as a situation of full employment does not exist, wages will continue to be suppressed. They've been suppressed for 40 years, and they keep going. Involuntary underemployment, which means anyone who is involuntarily taking a part-time job because they can't find full-time work, okay, they, right there, are an example of wage suppression. Why? Because what happens is the employer tells them they can only work a max of 16 hours a week, and he demands 40 hours of work squeezed into that 16 hours from that employee. It increases that productivity, all right? Pays less wages. Keep going and keep going like this across the nation, and national income will continue to redistribute itself away from workers over to capital. Capital will continue to line its pockets with the national income. Every time GDP goes up, capital takes a huge chunk out of it, and it's going to keep biting larger and larger chunks out of it. And then people are going to stand around and go, I wonder why there's such income and wealth inequality in the world. Because you're allowing capital to steal the national income from you through wage suppression. All right? And this is all deliberately a result. This is all leads back to the end of full employment. Full employment does not allow this. It's impossible. Okay? Because when you have a situation of full employment where everybody who wants a job can get one, employers, they have to accept certain demands from labor. They're going to walk out, and guess what? Business leaders are going to have a tough time making money. All right? But if you don't have full employment, you have deliberately created and maintained involuntary unemployment by government policy. The business leader can threaten you, not only with the economic terror of unemployment, not being able to find a job, so how are you going to pay your mortgage, how are you going to feed your kids, but also the social stigma. Oh, you're unemployed. You're one of those people. People have to live with this shit, and they don't need it when they're starving. Business leader don't give a shit. He's making money. And that's why we maintain this involuntary unemployment in perpetuity. That's what this NAIRU is about, all right? And this is what the job guarantee ends. It ends the bullshit once and for all. And it anchors the currency to labor. So if you fuck with labor, you fuck with the economy. And when you do, everyone's going to know who to blame.
That's right. You're goddamn right. Ellis, I want to ask you a question. I saw some questions come up that would be good about this with NAIRU and stuff. And I think that's an important discussion to have. But I want to touch on something that I think is even more important as a progressive, right? We tend to believe in trying to protect the environment. You know, you see the Green Party wants to protect the environment. They say they want to protect the environment. Democrats.
I believe they do.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying they believe that that's what's said, right? But the proof is in the pudding. Is the way I look at it. Right. I don't care about your fist in the air. I don't care about you negotiating a settlement before you've even come to the table to negotiate. I'm talking about if you really believe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Show me, don't tell me. So you say, and this comes from not only Stephen Hale, but Phil Lawn and yourself, in talking about a truly efficient economy. And we talked about the fact that in order to fix not only the environment, but to change forever, get rid of wars for oil and things like that, we have to really, really shift to renewable energy. Yeah. And the difference in production without having oil be the primary driver and without having all this other stuff going on for everything across the board, all the production, including transportation, everything from energy, you name it. When we shift to a renewable economy, it dramatically changes the way things are. No more wars for the same resources. No more BS when it comes to the environment. Now, all of a sudden, we're back to rebuilding our planet's ability to support life. Can you please explain from an MMT perspective the resource-based approach to an efficient economy? And I know you've got approximately 8 minutes, sir. No, but I mean, really, this is, in my opinion, between the job guarantee and renewable energy, the combination of those two, and we've just pretty much solved world hunger. I mean, that's how important both of those things are.
Well, you see, the thing is that when you shift away from oil, all right, and you go to sustainable energy and sustainable output, you know what happens? New jobs that you could never have imagined in your life all of a sudden start to exist. You kill the oil platforms and suddenly you find out that there are jobs available for people to install solar panels on roofs. Much safer, much cleaner, right? To install this wind and energy infrastructure, all right? Whole bunch of new jobs are created. And when they do, it spreads kind of like a virus throughout the economy. Everything, instead of working based on fossil fuel, begins to be designed around the sustainable. See, because capitalism naturally erodes our natural resources. And when it does, it's destroying our ability to grow our economy. You can only go so far before you start to destroy the planet. If you create an escape valve and go to over here, a little bit more sustainable output, it begins to spread. And the more fossil fuels that you eliminate or the less you rely on, and the more green energy that you begin to rely on, the more jobs are created for those things, the more products are designed around that type of energy, right? And sustainable energy, for one thing, for developing nations, a boon. Okay, if only they could develop sustainable energy, because of the two things, energy and food, that causes horrible problems for developing nations. The energy problem can be solved if wealthier nations and smarter nations, nations that have already done this several times and have developed sustainable energy sources, go to these countries and help them build this and learn how to do this. You understand? That takes away a hell of a huge chunk, all right? But the point being is that what we're talking about here, and as it relates to the economy, is that an economy, you hear people talking about economic growth. An economy cannot grow endlessly, okay? It just can't do that, and there's something wrong with GDP. I really like Phil Lawn's approach too, by the way, Stephen. That's just fantastic.
I love it too. I mean, what is that measure that he came up with that he's working?
You hit me right when I'm thinking in the middle of the thought. Why do you have to do that?
No, I love you, brother. You and Stephen Hale, love you both.
Why do you have to do that? But the thing is that capitalism, like I said, erodes our natural resources. It eats them alive. And it's going to keep, with fossil fuels, it's going to keep going and going and going and going until there's not a drop left, because it wants to squeeze every last bit out of that, right? But you'll never get to that point. You'll never get to that point. When the oil supply becomes so naturally low, okay, you're going to get a horrible response in the economy. Everything's going to get more and more expensive if we do not have a sustainable architecture in place to switch to. Okay, look at the 1970s again with OPEC. They restrict the oil supply, mess around with that. What do you use oil for? Gasoline, petrol, right? Home heating back then.
What do you think keeps
the oil
slick?
That's pomade. Okay. Getting to where a man can't buy a decent hair jelly. But you use it to lube the interior of your car, the engine. The interior of your engine. This fuel is made from oil. So in the 70s, look what happened. The price of everything started going up. Why is that? Well, because transportation. You've got inputs and outputs, right? You've got business trying to get supply with materials so they can make goods and then sell them and get to the market, and it has to be delivered. You've got people driving from point A to point B. Everything runs on this. So the price level just begins to rise and rise and rise. Imagine what would happen to the price level if tomorrow we're running out of oil. No? You don't have a sustainable architecture in place to shift to, you're hooked. All right? So it only makes sense, both from an environmental perspective and an economic perspective, to retool and shift to sustainable energy sources. And there is nothing stopping the government. I know this is kind of lame to say, but there's nothing stopping the government from approaching big oil companies, right? And saying to them, look, how about we give you a bunch of wonderful incentives if you just retool for sustainable energy? You reduce the fossil fuel dependence, drilling for oil, and instead start retooling to develop wind and solar and other forms of energy. There's nothing stopping them, right? But you got to love those oil profits, don't we, Stephen? Love those oil profits.
So, Sir Ellis, let me ask you this question, because this is probably going to drive me batty. When I see right now the folks coming out saying things like, they're saying they're going to pay for these programs with a Wall Street speculation tax. All right. There's the political reality that some truly awful people really have forsaken their value to the planet, one breath ahead of where they should be, really should be pushing up daisies, decided to create this thing called pay-go. And pay-go is just a stupid rule, has nothing to do with economics whatsoever. It really is the sign of an idiot, a loser, a microphone abuser to ever suggest pay-go at the federal level. But there are awful abominations out there that support this kind of worthlessness. That said, a Wall Street speculation tax is what we call a Pigovian tax, aka a sin tax, which is just something that happens to curb a certain behavior that is undesirable either for the market or for the country or whatever. Whoever is making the rules decides that's a sin, let's go ahead and tax it. However, once you stop doing said sin, the quote unquote revenue dries up, right? But do the programs that are funded by these sin taxes ever go away? No, they don't. So this is the troubling thing, right? By trying to say we're funding things with Wall Street, by saying we're going to tax Wall Street to fund these programs, what we've done is twofold. We've literally screwed our chances up of proving once again that taxes don't fund spending, because they don't. But we've also done something else too, which if people were remotely truly awake, not just this fake woke that talks about petrodollars, but really woke, they would understand that, wait, hold on. That behavior has been curbed to the point where it's not happening anymore, but the program that was set to be funded by it is still going. What the hell? Why is this? And I hate being the adult. For Christ's sake,
money from somewhere else paying for it. That's what they're doing. No, they're not. No.
I mean, that to me right there, my friend Ellis, is a really big deal. Can you explain the role of Pigovian taxes? And I think this is like a cheap throwaway, a gimme to pay for people, just to say, yeah, well, go ahead and we'll put it to a Wall Street speculation tax. Right.
It's one of the functions of a national government's spending authority or taxing authority. It's one of the purposes of taxation, to modify behavior. All right. If I see a bunch of smokers and I say, I hate smoking, damn it. Society hates smoking and we want to stop it because it's putting a lot of pressure on our healthcare system. We've got to cut down the number of smokers. Okay, but you don't just, well, I guess Trump would, he'd put on a jackboots and goose step on into the private sector there and tell everybody they have to stop smoking or they go to jail. All right. But when we have a civilized president and a civilized nation, the government employs tax authority to modify behavior. So it raises taxes on cigarettes dramatically in an effort to make them unaffordable or the price undesirable. So people say, screw this, I'm not paying $20 a pack, right? And they don't smoke anymore, right? That's the whole point. Well, when you say, I'm going to, how's it go, Stephen?
Let me go ahead.
We're going to have universal health care, so what I'm going to do is we're going to tax Wall Street a dime on every transaction. What you're trying to do is modify behavior. That's all you're doing. You're not paying for anything.
We're going to put a Wall Street speculation tax.
No, what you're doing is you're trying to curb Wall Street speculation. You're trying to reduce the number of occurrences of speculation on Wall Street. That's all that's going to happen. And so when people see this tax going on, if it's large enough, the speculators are going to say, fuck that, I'm not doing this. I'm not dealing in this particular type of speculation because I'm not paying that much money in tax. Fuck it. Well, guess what happens? The speculation behavior starts to decline over time. But universal health care is still funded day after day, year after year, decade after decade. And where's the money coming from? Let me show you where. Let me show them where, Stephen. It's right here. You see this little keyboard thingy right here? This is where the money comes from. How are you going to pay for it? This right here. I'm going to type these numbers in a bank account, and suddenly, guess what? The bank account size is going to increase. Then the central bank is going to do the same thing to a bank's reserve account, and it's going to mark it up by the same amount so the payment clears. It's called money creation. That's government spending. Okay, that's how we're going to do it. Now, am I saying that we should not touch Wall Street speculators? No, come at them with a fucking axe, man. I mean, some of these people deserve life in prison. Okay, amen. But what I'm trying to say to you, and what is the food commodity speculator driving up the price of food in poor nations and stuff because they make a quick buck? The hell with you. These people belong in prison.
Pikers.
But what I'm saying is that the money that the government is collecting in proceeds from these taxes is being deleted. That's it. It's not paying for anything. So, the Treasury will debit that account. The Federal Reserve will then note that the reserves will be removed from the economy forever. They will be deleted from a reserve account. The net money supply will drop just a bit. The level of reserves will drop. And guess what the Federal Reserve does? It goes over to an account called Treasury's operating accounts, at TGA. And it will go over there and it will type a number into that account. But the problem is nothing in that account counts towards the stock of money because it's not money. The government has to spend it for it to become money. So when Treasury then credits an account, the Federal Reserve creates brand new central bank liabilities by typing a number. And those numbers are infinite. Okay? The central bank, which is the Federal Reserve in the US, the BOE in England, the RBA in Australia, the BOJ in Japan, and the BOC in Canada, literally type money into existence. They emit currency, okay, by authority of government, because when Treasury credits a bank account, it walks in there and it types a number in someone's bank account. It's giving instructions to the central bank to inject reserves into the banking system. Boom. That's it. To clear the payment. End of story. There's no taxation, the proceeds funding anything. All government spending is money creation. All national government taxation is money destruction.
Thank you.
End of story.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, Ellis, I was sitting there getting railed on earlier, as...
Oh, I can't tell. I just saw you going like this. You had your phone, and Steve was doing this in case you couldn't see him. Like that, you know?
I was getting railed on as an apologist for the banksters. That
happens to me regularly.
I am so freaking over. It's like, seriously, it's like a tadpole and, Elmer Fudd mated, and they came up with this guy that says banksters. I swear to God, it's about as dumb as a box of rocks. And he's just an apologist for the banksters. No, I actually get economics, and that's the deal. And you don't. So my suggestion would be, when people say stuff like that, put that microphone down, put that keyboard down, put those headphones on, turn your mic off, shut your mouth, open your ears, take the sock out of your mouth, take the cotton out of your ears, learn, because you are an impediment to progress. You're not helping, you are hurting. And back to that statement we made earlier when we talked about the fact that Congress bailed out the banks, not the banks bailed out the banks. If the banks were making all the money, why didn't the banks just bail out the banks? Because it's Congress. And that alone should make people do a drop kick, savate kick right across the chin.
But they can't do that, though. Can't do that, though, Stephen, because if you blame Congress, you blame yourself.
Oh, my. Oh, but banksters.
You've got to find an unelected, undemocratic institution to blame. Because if you blame Congress, you got to blame the people because they voted for it. Okay? I'm telling you that every son of a bitch in Congress, every bastard in Parliament in the UK who voted to bail out the banks are the people who are apologists for banksters. Okay? Banks create all their money. Okay, well then that would mean by implication that banks are where all the money comes from, so they create money out of thin air, which is true when they lend, but it implies they're the currency issuer, so they can never run out of money. Why'd they need a bailout? And then why'd they go to Congress? If Congress is broke because the government's broke, why'd they go to Congress, the broke U.S. government, to ask for a bailout? Why didn't they go to the Federal Reserve? Because I thought that thing was the money creator too. According to the Rothschild conspiracy theorists, according to the Federal Reserve is a private bank conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. The Federal Reserve creates all our money out of thin air and lands it to the broke U.S. government in interest, and taxpayers foot the bill. Well, then explain to me, please, why the banks, when they went broke. The global banks now, Stephen.
Uh-oh.
Okay, global banks, they own the Federal Reserve, right? Chase owns them. All these other banks that, like, Lehman Brothers, all these Wall Street banks, they own the Federal Reserve, Stephen. But if they own the Federal Reserve, how did they go broke? How did they need a bailout? How did they need a bailout? And why didn't they go to the Federal Reserve for the money? Why did they go to Congress? How the hell do you earn a profit in your own fucking money? Yeah. Oh, I create business cards. I can earn a profit in my own business card. You know how stupid that sounds? How do you earn a profit in your own money? How do you expect to have a money that will function if it cannot possibly retire the debt attached to it? Why is it though? No, Stephen, answer my question.
I don't have an answer for you. I can't be a dullard anymore. I can't do it.
Why is it that the Federal Reserve, okay, if it creates all the money and it can never run out of money, why lend to the U.S. government? It doesn't need an income if it creates all the money. So why don't the Rothschilds and all the global banks just create all the money that they need and go live on an island somewhere like John Galt or something like that? Why don't they do that? Why don't they do that? No. They don't do it though, do they? They keep lending as though they need an income. What are they, stupid? So what you're telling me is that everyone, all of these conspiracy theorists, all of these rich banksters who own the Federal Reserve, okay, they're smart enough to take over the world, but they're too stupid to realize they don't need an income.
I mean, it defies reality because you realize that really what you're talking about is access to real resources. Yep. You're not talking about pieces of paper. You're not talking about keystrokes. And when you tell people this, they literally think that they're eyeball to eyeball with you, man. We are talking equal knowledge, equal truth, equal whatever. No, I'm telling you. It's like, dude, for real, please take a step back. You don't understand, and there's no harm in not understanding. I was once a Paul bot, so I was an idiot savant for sure. Truly a dumb son of a bitch. Okay, and I had an MBA, so that just goes to show you that learning this shit in the Orthodox schools is about as worthless as an extra asshole on your elbow.
I mean, it's official.
Just look at these pieces of paper back here, aren't they impressive? I put them back there just so I can mock them. But the reality is that we have literally watched time and again that you see people say things in an edgy way. You know, and this, I've gotten in a lot of fights with good friends recently because you type in all caps and you sit there and you try and make some hair on fire post that gives a bunch of clicks and likes and hearts and loves so you can get a little bit of a shot of heroin for, oh, they care about me. Okay, that kind of crap. But the reality is when they do this stuff and they fan the flames of bullshit, okay, it really, I mean, you and I talked about it. It takes 5,000 words to correct one asshole's bullshit post. One of these. On average, sometimes it could take me 1,200 to 1,500 words to correct a small thing, or sometimes as much as 5,000 words just to correct a small short statement. The idea of having people not understand how vital the language change is and being unrelenting, unequivocal, absolutely straight up and unbending, unyielding. There is no, I am not going to cave a nanosecond, not an inch, not nothing on the truth, because I'm not fighting to pass one bill today. I'm fighting to change the world. And the people that follow us gratefully are fighting to change the world as well, because this is not just a U.S. issue, is it? In fact, the U.S. has exported its idiocy around the globe. Yeah. And here we are. We've got friends in Australia, friends in the UK. Dr. Hale went out there to Oxford. I mean, we're talking about a global scourge. And we've had Bill Mitchell on here constantly. Yeah. We've got a lot of people around the world. We've got friends all over the place that are living and breathing this neoliberal austerity model that there should be no cover for. This is worse than racism. This is worse than war, because this is the ultimate core of war. This is what gives racism its bite. This is the ultimate single shot. You want one spot to fix almost everything? Start with economic justice. And MMT is the pathway there. But Ellis, what is it like? You have Japan, 250% debt to GDP. There's no petro yen. There's none of the bullshit that you see these folks peddling around in their little, I was a political prognosticator on Facebook once. Tough racket, man. These guys running around soupy sales of the world, trying to be coolios. How do we get them to understand this, that this is not just a U.S. problem? This is a global problem, and that we're not going to beat it just focusing on our own little teeny piece of the earth. That we've got to worry about the whole enchilada.
Every time an American politician says something stupid, it gives a politician in the United Kingdom, for instance, the ability to say something stupid. All right. Now you remember last year at the Grenfell Tower problem. Remember when the Grenfell Tower thing occurred and all those people lost their property and people died because of austerity in the UK? You remember that guy on Twitter that said, I would rather have homeless people than lose my property rights. You remember that?
Son of a bitch. Yes, I remember.
Remember that guy? His name was Benjamin. His name was Benjamin. His name was Benjamin. All right? 40 years ago, you would never hear a person like that, or it would be very rare to hear a person like that in the United Kingdom stand up and say that publicly. Who's responsible for that? And you think about what Benjamin said. Exactly, America. Benjamin is talking as though he's an American. Where did he get these ideas? They're imported from the United States. Every time the U.S. does something stupid, it's look at Australia. Well, we've got to follow the US lead, right? Whatever the US is doing, we've got to do it too. That's what the politicians want you to do. And then you got ScoMo sitting there. Okay, he's brain dead. And the whole thing is that the US influences the world. So what you're not understanding is that if you're a US citizen, neoliberalism in America, the corporate culture here and the government, which is enabling it, is exporting it to the UK. And it's destroying people's lives. It's dismantling their universal health care service, the National Health Service. It's cutting people's benefits off. It's declaring terminally ill people fit for work. Okay? Your country is responsible for this. You've got to help reverse that. Okay? You've got to understand that. It's down there in Australia dismantling other people's safety nets. There was 40 years ago, these countries would look at the US, especially during Reagan's time, the UK and Australia, they would look at the US and go, I don't, no. And now it's sort of like, let's just adopt the US way. That's what the Tories are doing in England and the Conservatives down there in Australia. I mean, it's insane how everybody's trying to mimic the US.
You said something to me a while back that is perfect for this moment. And because we're at 9:17, I want to be fair about the time here. This is something I would like to make sure that we punch the ticket on. You and I have different angles. We very similar in some respects, but we have our own thing. You're a teacher and I'm a explainer and I'm an activist. And we have our different little corners of this game.
We both do activism. We just
in our own way, right?
Yeah. Everybody does what they can do. Yeah.
The one thing that you and I talked about that I think bears repeating that I have held on to for dear life. We talked about writing a book, and we talked about writing a book on hope. And folks, just so you know, we'll be doing a podcast called Macro and Cheese with Ellis and Steve, and it's exciting. I can't wait. But before we get there, one of the things that you told me was, I understand you punching different people that are recalcitrant, whatever these folks, he says, but really I tend to punch upward at these orthodox economists and stuff because they know better and they've lied for years and they've profited off of it, et cetera. Yeah. And the reality is that the American people and the world, quite frankly, have been lied to for so long that we're not just the inflation scare, the Milton Friedman inflation scare, all the quantity theory of money, all the bullshit that we have dealt with through the course of neoliberalism's, scorched earth Sherman march through our lives. You made the point, and it was very eloquent. The people have been lied to. They're doing the best they can with the information they have. It's ingrained in them. Yeah. We have to beat this through destroying the Milton Friedman, myth, basically, and start from there and then work our way out. And people will eventually wake up and embrace hope. Please talk about that for just a second to close us out so people understand we're here for them. It's just not like a punching session. Yeah. And we are punching, but because we care about each other, this is tough love. We're dealing with our side of the street. Talk about this hope thing and talk about how we've been lied to.
The orthodoxy, which is New Keynesian theory, neoclassical theory, these people, I'll say it this way, Stephen. What passes for economics today, when people think economics, they think of all this BS that you hear from Paul Krugman and whatnot. All of it is propaganda masquerading as economics. All right? It's deliberately created propaganda to serve the needs and benefit entirely the financial sector or the corporate sector. That's it. All right? It doesn't do anything for you. And you have mainstream economists out there who are saying the most inane, ridiculous things. MMT comes along, suddenly makes a huge impact, and all of a sudden you hear these new Keynesian economists saying, we already knew that. We already knew that. You know, you're not telling us that. MMT is not giving us anything new. If you already knew it, what the fuck's your problem? Okay, and that was my point several years ago. The fuck's your problem? I think it was 2016. I said, what's your fucking problem then, man? But the thing is that when you see someone like me go out and go on a rampage, I'm not raging at the people themselves. I'm raging at politicians, the media, the professionals who know better or who ought to know better, but insist on playing the game for the 1% because that's who pays their wages. Okay, and that's who keeps them in positions of influence. MMT changes the game forever because it tells the truth. It creates a framework for real macroeconomic policy to be designed and implemented, okay, based in reality. And because people have been lied to for many years, 40 years, over 40 years, that it's their tax dollars that are funding a broke government, that the government is borrowing and the national debt's going to kill us all, okay? Because they've heard this. And they've heard the lie from the mainstream that there's scarcity. One of the worst lies ever comes from people like Paul Krugman, who say, you can deficit spend now, but down the road, you may have to make some hard choices with regard to Social Security. That's a fucking lie. Okay? And the truth is Paul knows it. He's intellectually dishonest. He's more worried about his position, New York Times. He's more worried about his influence than he is about telling the truth, because there's no money to be made in MMT, you see. But the truth is that people have heard this crap. If we deficit spend now, they're going to take my Social Security down the road because we're going to have to raise taxes to pay for it. I don't know what we're going to do. We're all going to die. It's all a lie. They've got people worked up and scared shitless. And the truth is, there are people like the asshat that just died recently, Pete Peterson.
Oh, yes.
He's been trying. He had been trying for years to loot Social Security, to privatize it so he could loot it, get his hands on everybody's money. That's all he wanted. And that's why Fix the Debt exists, to loot your birthright for rich people. All right? MMT changes all this, and it tells you that Social Security can never become insolvent because the trust fund isn't a bank account filled with hard cash and gold coins. All right? It's just a spreadsheet. And when government taxes your paycheck, FICA, it destroys that money by deleting it on a keyboard. Here it is, keyboard. Destroys those FICA taxes you paid, and then it records how much it destroyed on a ledger, a spreadsheet with your name. And you know what that trust fund does? It tells the Social Security Administration how many benefits you get if you became disabled today, how much your pay would be when you retire, send you a little notice. Now you know, the government knows, keep track of all that stuff. And it knows who it's paying. The government instructs Treasury, you know, Treasury goes and credits an account and pays the beneficiary. Yay. That's it. It's no different. It's no different than you taking your paycheck, okay, putting it in the bank, and then on a piece of paper at home writing down coffee fund and then putting $100 on that. All right? And then you start buying coffee, and each time you do, you erase that number and you make it lower and lower. When the number gets to zero, does that mean you can never buy coffee again? Are you insolvent? Fuck no! The Treasury pays Social Security. The government generates the money to pay Social Security. The trust fund is irrelevant. If it went into negative numbers, it would just mean that beneficiaries are getting their money. All right? You're being lied to. When people start hearing this truth and they say, my God, you know, that does make sense. I've been lied to. Suddenly there's hope. Where before there was nothing but desperation. because of these scarcity bullshit arguments that you hear. Oh, deficit spend now, but down the road it's going to be tough choices for Social Security. Bullshit, Paul. Shut the fuck up. Okay? You do us all a favor if you get the fuck off Twitter and stop writing in the New York Times column there. Get the fuck out. Shut your mouth, you lying sack of shit. There will be no tough choices for Social Security unless we cannot produce enough goods and services for the old people to buy right along with everybody else. Beyond that, there's no tough choice. So when people hear this and they go, that's right. If we have all the money in, I could have $1 million in the bank account, Steve. But if I can't buy anything with it, what good's the money? Exactly. Exactly. Okay, you got it. You're getting it. Okay. So when people get to that point, they're like, I have hope. It isn't about scarcity. I've been lied to. It's about efficiency. Doing the best, as Bill Mitchell says. It just reminded me, cling, light bulb. What Bill Mitchell says, he says it eloquently and best. It's about doing the best with what you have. That's it. That's it.
Alice, stand up ever so slightly to show people this incredible shirt you're sporting.
No, I'm going to put the camera down.
Well, we didn't want to see that now, dude. It's too much, man. But there you go.
It looks like
a
badass
shirt. I love that shirt. It's my favorite. I've got a big hoodie sweatshirt with that sucker on it, too. I love it.
Looks like a JCPenney catalog picture, doesn't it?
Hey, well, listen, I want to say this real quick. It's been a while, and I want to thank you for coming back on with me. And I want to tell everybody, there's a bunch of names that are going to be coming out here soon as we finish up our bylaws, as we finish our 1023, which is the IRS form to get 501c3 status. But I came to Ellis and I said, Ellis, I want you to be the policy director for economic justice. And Ellis graciously accepted that. And I want to tell you all, this is going to change the world. We are going to, no holds barred, knocking down all 7 of our knowledge areas with one of the most brilliant men I've ever met in my life, guiding the undergirding of the economic policy pillar. We are also tied, I can tell you, Fidel Kaboub has agreed to work with us as a part of our board of directors. Dr. Stephen Hale has agreed to be on our board of directors. Patricia Pino has agreed to be on our board of directors. And Tim Canova, the other day when he was on with me, we talked, he said, Steve, I'm more than willing to be on your board of directors as well. So I want to tell you guys, we've got one hell of a strong team. I'm hoping you guys will throw some pennies our way because we need financial support to be able to do all the wonderful things we want to do so we can take on real establishment types. The Macro and Cheese podcast will be coming online in the next couple weeks. We're working through some technology stuff, trying to make sure that we get everybody set up, all the PA equipment together, all the recording software together, get our engineers in place and so forth. I'm expecting that podcast to kick butt because it's going to take us beyond Facebook significantly.
And Arthur Bach from the film Arthur will be making appearances regularly to teach MMT as well.
That's awesome.
We've got Arthur to do the work, right, Stephen? It's going to.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. I am dead serious. So, folks, I ask you this from the bottom of my heart. We are in the process of trying to become a 501c3. We are currently a Pennsylvania state charity while we're waiting for our 501c3 status to go through. If you any help whatsoever is appreciated immensely. The links are in the narrative of this broadcast. You can donate through PayPal, you can donate through Patreon, or you can send it to our P.O. Box, which is P.O. Box 313, Lewisberry, Pennsylvania, 17339. And folks, Ellis is back, and I couldn't be happier. Ellis, this was fun tonight, sir. Thank you so much.
That's my pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, folks, have a wonderful 4th of July. Celebrate it progressive style. Make sure people are learning something important to make the world better. Don't just sit there and shoot off fireworks. Make sure we're doing something right. Have a good night, everybody. This is Steve Grumbine, and Ellis.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.